Hello once again, Taurus. Dadhichi here from astrology.com.au, and continuing the theme of self-empowerment. And for you this month, a new moon in Scorpio, which is your 7th house of relationships, Mercury moving into that 7th sign for you, and that's occurring on the 2nd of November. This period, 2nd to the 12th, is a very powerful time for you because it does shed light. And you've got the sun transiting in that area too, so you're going to have to address what's being thrown up to you. You need to accept that. You need to change it. You know, the new moons reveal a lot of stuff to us. You know, if you're wanting to change things and do something new, of course you have to let go of the old. And for you, unfortunately, for your star sign, that's one of the most difficult things, because you're a fixed sign, what we call immovable. You're a fixed earth sign. And so you need to feel some sort of concrete security about what you're doing. And that's maybe where the relationships now may start to feel a little bit less so. You've got a beautiful conjunction of Venus and Mars, your ruling planet, with that ruler of the 7th house in your 5th house of love affairs now. That's taking place on the 3rd. So you can see right at the outset of the month, a lot of things happening there. This one does bring with it some passion, some romance. But we do see, having Saturn just snuck into your 8th house of sexual intimacy, that you could be going through some diametrically opposed feelings. There's a contradictory energy going on here. On the one hand, Jupiter, Venus, Mars in your 5th house of love affairs. On the other hand, on the deeper level, a sense of constriction. So I'm just wondering whether you're playing along because of what's expected of you, whether you don't want to unsettle that sense of security. So outwardly it's all, this is great. But inwardly it's like, oh, don't touch me. There's that contrary sort of thing going on. And really to find that sort of self-empowerment we're talking about, if you listen to the introduction, what I just gave there, the sense of really being free to be who you are, to do what you want to do. But at the same time, knowing that that's not completely dependent on freeing yourself of the physical circumstances that you're in, is the way to go. You need to deal with that. And if you're not feeling comfortable about the relationship you're in, you need to communicate that. You need to talk about it. And you need to put your cards on the table. And you are normally honest, but you're weighing that up against the security issue, I think, at this time. There's a lot going on there, as I said. November 10, for example, we have a very, very powerful sextile aspect between Mercury and Pluto. Pluto's also the principal ruler of your 7th house of relationships and marriage and that type of thing, long-term committed relationships. Having Mercury in that sextile aspect, that's a 60-degree aspect. And, that's all, again, that's bringing up the theme of the 8th house, Scorpio. And Mercury, there's communication, so really getting down into the nitty-gritty of it and releasing those elements of your relationships that aren't working for you right now is imperative if you're going to be happy. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying you're probably glossing over those aspects and thinking, well, no problem. You may be making light of that, when in fact, subconsciously, that's eating away at you, and you need to resolve that. Let me have a look here at your transit list, because we see the Venus and Mars combination. That's those two planets moving away from this 5th house into your 6th house of work, physical discipline, debts and disease, and even enemies. So we see that that's taking place when Venus moves out on the 9th, and then Mars quickly following on the 13th. So 2 important transits moving there into your 6th house. That makes it a little bit difficult for you. There'll be a shift away from all this relationship stuff the 2nd week into issues that relate to your health, debts, even enemies to some extent. You do have Uranus and the South Node in your 12th house of enemies throughout this period. So there could be something that's out of your control there. Sometimes it's not individuals themselves. It could be the group, for example, that is obstructing you. Maybe at your meetings, you may have a certain way of doing things, and you can feel as if you're being ganged up on. You know, the consensus is against what you feel is the proper course of action, or the right way to do things. So you need to manage that very, very carefully throughout that period into the second week, and maybe a little bit beyond that. Let's have a look here. The forward movement of Neptune is important in your house of friendships. It's stationary direct on the 19th of November, and that's going to allow you to move forward and to maybe attract the sort of people that you idealize. If you've been stuck with friends, it's sort of an extension of what we talked about with your one-on-one relationships here. If you're not particularly happy, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to empower yourself if you've got the ball and chain of a peer group or the types of people you've had for years and years that aren't serving your spiritual and emotional growth at this time? Well, you need to do something about that. And the retrogression of Neptune in that 11th house, I believe, and now also with the triangular aspect of the Sun, is giving you a clearer insight into those people that are going to solidly support that new growth spurt you're going through at this time. There's a very hard aspect on the 21st. Venus, your ruler, the hard aspect to Pluto, and then again in the opposition to Uranus. That takes place on the 24th. So this could be hard times for you, unexpected sorts of twists and turns in your relationship that you need to manage. But fortunately for astrology, you can note that in your diary now, right? And be one step ahead of it. There's a load of aspects from the 24th up until the 29th. Let's just start with the Mars sextile Saturn. That's excellent. That's a solidifying aspect, very constructive aspect for you, and one that can help you come to some decision over these matters I opened the reading with, your sexuality, that sort of thing. It can also have to do with structuring your life much more in line with what you have set as a standard. So that's constructive. It also helps you with shared finances, resources, bank managers, your taxation. If that's been a frustration, you can sort that sort of stuff out. Mercury in this period has quite a few very, very big aspects. It's sextiles Saturn, squares Neptune, sextiles sextiles Mars. So these are all communication aspects. So you're going to be pretty busy there, writing letters, emails, connecting with people, making calls, visiting others. So mark that down also as an important element of your life at that time. The Saturn square Neptune on the 26th coincides with the full moon, which is taking place in Sagittarius, again in that sign of sexuality for you and intimacy. And that, of course, I think will bring to conclusion some of those initial issues that you've been trying to work through. It may not be a complete conclusion, but at least you may have broken the back of some of those problems by this time. And the sextile of Saturn to the Sun on the 29th, that's excellent, being one of your career planets, bringing with it some additional responsibility, but responsibilities you're probably going to enjoy and are probably going to help you to further your career successes during the coming period. The Sun also, it's quite a reverse aspect. You've got, what I was talking about there was the Sun-Saturn conjunction. My apologies for that. It's a bit hard to read all this gobbledygook on the page. That is exactly the same thing. It brings with it some responsibilities. At first, they may be a bit difficult to shoulder, but you'll see out of that some good stuff will come. That's on the 30th. My apologies again. And so the month does end on a note of responsibility, even though it began on a note of sexuality, relationships, and that sort of thing. So hopefully you can tie all of this in together, and it will end on a good note. You can subscribe at the bottom here. Hope you'll be here next month. We're going to continue the theme of self-empowerment, which I believe astrology is for. And in the meantime, you can visit astrology.com.au to get more in-depth analysis of this month in question, November 2015. Till next month, take care, good luck, see you then. Bye-bye.